Hello! Today I'm taking a look at a Cotes du Rhone. This is the Cotes du Rhone Belleruche from Chapoutier. And I have looked at the Chapoutier Cotes du Rhone before, but my understanding is the Belleruche is a step up from that in that it's an estate grown wine rather than a wine produced from grapes grown by other growers or wines that have been bought in from other producers. Belleruche means beautiful beehives, and that relates to the fact that they have a number of beehives on their various properties. And I think this is all linked to Chapoutier's ideal of being sustainable, organic and biodynamic, although I don't think this is necessarily an organic or biodynamically grown wine. Chapoutier are quite an important producer in the Rhone region, and they also have other interests in, say, the Languedoc, Alsace and even Australia. The family's history living in the Rhone Valley has been traced back to 1808. It's not, however, until 1879 Polydor Chapoutier takes the decision to move the family into wine production. They're relatively successful, but the modern company and wine really has its roots in 1988 when Michel Chapoutier returned from having studied enology and winemaking to work at his family's firm. What he found quite quickly was that he wasn't able to work with his grandfather and his father, Marc and Max, who somewhat shared the responsibilities. So at the age of 26, Michel gave his grandfather an ultimatum and insisted that he sell him the company or that he would leave. Having purchased the company, the first thing he did was to sack both his grandfather and his father. Since then, Michel has developed ideas such as biodynamic and organic viticulture. He can justifiably be seen as one of the pioneers of biodynamic viticulture in the Rhone Valley. And he moved the company away from aging in large old oak to using smaller oak cooperage for its top wines. This particular wine blends 60% of Grenache with 35% of Syrah and 5% of Marseillane. Marseillane has only relatively recently been approved to be used as an accessory grape in Cotes du Rhone. The varieties are a relatively modern crossing of Grenache and Cabernet Sauvignon, giving both sort of richness and structure to the wine. And in honesty, it's probably most widely seen being grown in China at the moment. As I say, it's my understanding that this wine is produced on Chapoutier's own vineyards in their own estate, although they note a variety of soils ranging from stony clay to layers of stone or gravels, stony clay terraces and stony silt. What ties the soils for this wine together is that all of them give good water availability to the plant, so they're not hugely affected by drought, and also they note the fact that the stones or pebbles that comprise the soils are very good at retaining the heat of the day and supplying it back to the plant at night. There's no indication on the label or any of the technical sheets that I can see that these vineyards are either farmed or certified as organic or biodynamic. So I have no idea to what extent that's been the case. We're told the fruit's harvested at full ripeness, what's referred to as phenolic maturity, so I'm talking about ripe tannins there, and that the majority of the fruit for this wine was machine harvested. In the winery, the grapes were destemmed and they were vinified in a combination of concrete and stainless steel tanks, with fermentation being restricted to 28 degrees as its maximum temperature for most of the time, and skin contact going on for 3 to 4 weeks. They also mention that at the end of fermentation, temperatures are allowed to rise to 30 to 33 degrees, just to help the polymerization, the fixing and the smoothing of the tannins in the wine. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? First thing to say, it's got a lovely dark ruby to maroon colour. There are purple hints in there, but not vibrant purples. Although it's not particularly deep, I can easily see the stem of the glass as I look down through the wine. Swirling it, the wine's label says it has 14% alcohol, although the technical sheet said it had 14.5%, but I think that's probably an alcohol level that's been left from previous vintages. There are some quite obvious tears running down the side of the glass there, so I'm expecting that as well as alcoholic warmth, we've got a good structure here. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? The aromas give a rich, meaty impression. When I say meaty, I'm thinking of sort of bloody red meat, and yet at the same time there's a very ripe, warm, ripe red plum, ripe black plum, almost a sort of prunish sort of notes. There might be some touches of spice, but there are no obvious oak notes, so the spices are more pepper than, say, nutmeg, cinnamon or cedar. There's a slightly high-toned plum or prune note at the back of the aromas. So let's taste. That's a medium to full-bodied wine with smooth, ripe tannins. There's a real richness. You've got all those sort of ripe red and black plum notes that become sort of ripe red to black cherry notes. And then there's a licoricey note. There is reasonable freshness on the edges of my tongue. Although this doesn't seem to be a particularly high acid wine. And the alcohol, while it's clearly sort of giving some of that weight to the back palate and richness, doesn't seem out of balance. It's not leaving the finish hot. It's allowing the fruit to move on from the licoricey notes of the rich core of the wine to develop some sort of red cherry, almost red currant notes on the finish. The finish is reasonably long. I wouldn't say it was exceptionally so. It's not hugely complex. There's a nicely restrained intensity of the fruit continuing to show. The tannins, as I say, are smooth. There isn't a lot of grip. There's perhaps a little bit of slightly peppery, drying notes on the finish. But in general, the texture is warm, ripe and rounded. Looking at the Wine Searcher aggregated critic score for this vintage of this wine gets 88 out of 100. I think you might argue that it's worth 1 or 2 points more. Yet at the same time, although the wine has some nice depth, it's actually quite straightforward. But yes, even in that context, it has quite a nice restrained fruit intensity on the finish. And there are just touches of meatiness and spice. So yes, I think a very accessible wine, not one that needs time to age, but also one that if you were to keep it for 3 or 4 years, is not going to fall over at any stage soon. It certainly has the intensity and the balance to last for a few years yet. And I also think it's a decent, typical example of a Cotes du Rhone, perhaps more elegant and with fresher fruit than some, but I think if you like Grenache-based wines, I think this delivers what you'd expect. It's accessible, it's smooth, it's very versatile, it will match a large number of foods. So yes, quite a rounded and complete example of a branded Cotes du Rhone. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you found the video of interest. If you have, do please press the like button, that would be fantastic. If you would like to leave any comments, please pop those in the comments box below. We would love to know what you think about the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else that relates to this. If you have friends you think might like to watch the video, do please feel free to pass it on to them. If you'd like to watch more of these videos, the best answer is to subscribe to our channel, and that way you can set yourself an alert to make sure you're notified every time we publish a new video. If you're looking to buy the wine or to find out more about it, I'll leave a link in the notes below to the Wine Searcher webpage for this vintage of this wine, and that way you can see where it's stocked locally, what its prices are in your market. There are also tabs on that page to give you more information, such as information about the producer, the region, the grape variety, how the wine's made. There's a price history tab there. You can also use the tabs to find out what the critics have said about the wine and what other users have thought about the wines. And we also note any awards and medals that the wine's won and that. And you can do a vintage comparison as well on one of the other tabs. So there's plenty of useful market information that you can use if you want to think about buying this wine. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you'll manage to join us again at another tasting in the very near future. Until then, bye for now.